So, Phil, do you want to get us up to date?
Absolutely. All right. So real quick, I do believe we will have Representative Krupp joining us today. If is he on already? Not yet. Okay. So and that is dependent upon their floor sessions and everything going. And so what we're hearing right now is they are trying to wrap up as immediately as possible. Frustrations have been building between the big investment package deals that have been trying to be negotiated, and now it's blowing up in the sense of budget context. And so what we're hearing from Ways and Means ran until about 9:30 last night. They're meeting again today through Capital Construction because they're having issues getting votes on the full committee. So they're going to be in subcommittees. So they're going to be moving a lot of bills starting today through Capital Construction to the full. So if you see a bill that you're tracking and all of a sudden it gets referred to Capital Construction, that is what's going on. A couple of those occurred yesterday. They've already published an agenda for Capital Construction today that meets at 1 p.m. and then it'll go straight to the full and then straight to both chamber floors. And so that is in the attempt to wrap up. They are no longer taking funding requests into LFO as of not yesterday, the day before, Wednesday. And we're starting to hear that they want to tighten this budget up, get the paperwork finalized and bills out. And so that is just what we know that's kind of driving the tone, driving the speed. And I guess I would just pause there. We are hearing these large investment packages are moving forward. The paperwork has not been published yet and all of that, but that will be forthcoming here in the next couple of days. And so, but I do see we have the representative on, and so I don't want to hold him up because I know they have a busy day. So Commissioner, I don't know if it's okay to pause, let him take first go at this, give a legislative update, and then Representative, the second one on our list was actually your bill anyway, to just talk about the status of that. And so I don't want to take the wind out of your sails on it. So.
No, good morning, everybody. And I apologize. I have like a short window. Things got doubly scheduled for me. I'll just reiterate what Phil's saying, like the budget process is sort of what's left in the session, more or less. So all the budget pieces are rolling out. We talked yesterday about $400 million housing package. Included in that discussion was House Bill 4123. So that's in Ways and Means. That looks like to be in a good place, knock on wood. So, and then other sort of, statewide money that I think will be a big help to Deschutes County as well. So, yeah, we're sort of waiting to see what those final budget pieces are going to look like, sorry. So that's sort of the last thing. Sorry, I ran here and I got to run somewhere else in a minute. Is there anything else that are on folks' radar, have questions or curious about?
I'm not sure if this is a question for Phil or so there were a couple of solid waste bills that I was following, and they didn't show up on the printout that Whitney forwarded this morning. 1576 was one of them on mattress producer responsibility, and there was a second bill I don't have the notes in front of me on. If they're not on the list, does that mean they have faded away?
On our list, we are doing just priority 1s and 2s right now. I think we have that one listed as a priority 3, but just try to, given that the timeline for our postings and stuff have been reduced from that 24 hours to having to react real quick. We're just looking at the priorities 1 and 2s on our list today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But I can track that down and get an update for you. They just had a public hearing on that and moved that out of a subcommittee. So I do see that mattress one moving. So.
Yeah, the latest updates I get from our trade group, they're still active.
Well, it looks like it moved out of Ways and Means and is on the Senate. Yeah, that looks like it's moving. If I'm just looking at it correctly. And maybe it's on the Senate. Third read today on the Senate side.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Potentially, unless something happens, potentially voted on the Senate side today. Am I seeing that right, Phil? Okay, thanks.
That is correct.
Jason, can you give us your feel for how that $400 million housing and homelessness package is doing? Like, is that Do you feel like that's going to move, or do you feel like it's gummed up right now, or?
It's gonna move unless the session shuts down for some reason. So, yeah, I mean, it is, yes. I mean, unless, I'm not, there's a week to go, things happen, unless there's something that I'm not necessarily anticipating, that package is gonna move. So,
Thanks.
yeah, I will say for a lot of us, both sides of the aisle, both chambers, like a homeless and housing package of substance to build on what we did last session was, if not top priority, right up there. But I would say it's up there as a top priority for a lot of people in the building.
Good to know.
Yeah. I apologize for being brief. I'm happy to come back some other point. I'm happy to come back next week if you want to schedule something, or individual commissioners. I apologize for being so brief today, but I'm also happy to, if you want just to connect on an individual level, I'm happy to make myself available over the weekend or next week. If you want to do that, just let me know. You guys can text me or reach out to me if that works.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, sorry about this, but no, literally just reach out to me and I'll schedule some time.
Our next update is scheduled for March 2nd. So thank you, Jason, for coming this morning.
All right, nice seeing everybody.
You can always send a text. Thank you. Okay. All right, Phil.
No problem. And
Mitchell?
and I think the last thing that before I kick it over to Ryan, just on political landscape, is just touching again that the budget wrapping up is really driving some of that. But there was a little bit, you're going to start seeing bills coming out of Ways and Means on party line basis, not so much because of the policy. The conversation last night was actually very interesting. It was a lot of the Republican members are saying that they are good with the policy. And the best example, which is on our list, is the governor's recommended workforce development bill that is getting funded at $200 million. And I have the breakdown of those, which of where that money is going, which I said that I would have for this meeting last time. And so one of the things that was the conversation is that through this short session, it's about $2 billion in new spending. And so what you're hearing on the pushback is a lot of this is not long-term funding sources that we're going to have to find money for in the next biennium. And so there was a conversation from that where you saw a number of Republicans just saying and giving note that they will be no on a lot of these bills, not because of the policy, but because there's just no guarantee that these are going to continue to be funded. And they didn't want to stand up new programs only to not have them be funded literally half a biennium later. And so that was noted. The Senator co-chairs had mentioned that they are planning to end with a lower than average ending fund balance. That hasn't been determined yet, but there is predictions that the next revenue forecast is also going to be a good one. Possibly not as good as this last one, obviously, which was $1 billion of new resources to the state, but it's still looking to be trending in the good way. And so I do want to just note that, because when I hear things like that and then I see bills coming out on very partisan lines, sometimes you think it's the policy, but it was noted very much in Ways and Means last night that some of these bills, they agreed with the policy, but it's just they did not believe that we have the resources to maintain them long term. And so that will be driving some of the no votes in Ways and Means moving forward. And then Ryan, is there any other things outside of the budget I'm missing that's driving political landscape and tone right now?
Yeah, there's emotions are running hot right now, and they're going to start boiling over if they haven't already begun that process. Yesterday, they spent at least an hour and a half on the floor, arguing and bickering over mask rules. There was one senator who didn't wear his mask on the floor, and it caused a back and forth debate that took us away from any advancing of issues forward to get closer to sine die. The Democrats created a new joint committee to try and streamline passage of the ag overtime bill, which of course infuriated the Republican leadership. and creating a new process midstream to try to expedite something rather than taking it through its normal process. Emotions are running hot right now. Republicans have said they're not going to be issuing any rule suspensions whatsoever. Speaker Rayfield and the presiding officers had decided they wanted LFO to get all the paperwork ready by Monday in order to try to, turn and burn and get the bills passed in the next couple of days. They were targeting a midweek adjournment next week, but now, given the current state of negotiations with the minority party, they, will grant no rule suspensions, and if that happens, we'll be lucky to get out by next weekend. But that things change at a moment's notice at this point in time, but they seem to be boiling over. They seem to be partisan tensions are at all-time highs.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for those words about what's really happening in Salem. So, but we're not talking about anyone walking though, are we?
Both party leaders in the minority in both chambers have said they are leaving all the tools in the toolbox. Everything's on the table and potentially be used, including in up to walkouts. But that is, they also have made it clear that that's sort of the last resort they would go to. So there's no on the table right now.
Thank you. Thank you. So then it's too early to know anything about like our courthouse funding or the other millions of dollars that we asked for. Oh, Phil, I can't hear you, but I see your lips are moving.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I checked in on that this morning with Amanda and LFO. They are being very hush hush on that. I think part of that is because if one of these investment packages falls apart because of the tensions going on, that they don't want to have it put out there that it was on a list, it wasn't on a list, and then something changed. I know the requests have been put in. I know when it left the House in negotiations, I was being told that there were 2 Deschutes County projects. I could not get them to tell me which ones those were, but 2 projects within Deschutes County. I don't know if those were ours that we submitted, cities that submitted, anything like that, but 2 for Deschutes County region. So in addition, we also know that we are going to, in that $400 million housing investment package, there is the $8 million for the representatives bill, which $1 million will come to Deschutes County on that. So that we do know that one's moving forward. I'm not hearing any hiccups on that. So.
And that 8 million you just said is within the 400 million?
Yeah, it's going to be part of the housing investment package to address homelessness. So, and it is to your point, Commissioner Chang, we talked about this a couple times. It is going to be general fund, so they are not going to tie that up in ARPA dollars. So that won't be subject to ARPA dollar deadlines. It will be general fund. But I think we talked about it once on that bill, and then mostly though on the forest bill that didn't move forward. But. All right.
And Phil, can I ask, so the $400 million housing and homelessness package, is that being viewed as one-time funding that, there isn't tension about, or is it being put into this category of, programs that people are concerned about being able to fund next biennium?
It's a little bit of both. So there's going to be, and I'm just pulling my notes from that hearing. So for homelessness help, they are looking at $145 million to help cities and local governments address it. They that could go through $37 million for emergency shelters, navigation centers. That's where I believe our 1 million's located in. 75 million. So of the 145 million, 37 will go to emergency shelters, navigation centers. 75 million to motel to shelter conversions through Project Turnkey. So that was, that is a tentatively not a long-term program, but that could be turned in by the amount of dollars we're putting into that. At some point, they're going to have to continue tracking that. So I imagine that might be a long-term, longer than expected program. and then 25 million for shelter operations and technical assistance. There's also going to be 100 million in flexible funding for eviction prevention, and that's going to be ran through CBOs. And then 560 million is going to go to construction and preservation of publicly supported affordable housing. That will wow, I was writing fast there in that sense, didn't make sense. So for supported housing, as well as funds for down payment assistance, manufactured home park acquisitions, things like that. So I'm assuming that there's existing programs in the housing department for some of that. If not, they will have to stand up a one-time program, or that might come under the governor's office. I haven't seen the paperwork for this from LFO, and that will detail that. So if that's helpful.
So
Okay.
you said 100 million for eviction. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so there's programs currently in place where if you're having trouble making payments, they can apply for these resources, and it helps keep people from being evicted. And the intention there is to help prevent homelessness. It's much easier to help somebody get back on their feet when they have a roof over their head and meals. And so I think that will fall under that perspective. But that will be going through CBOs, which is, they don't have a long history of doing that. That's been going through state programs previously. So I don't know if that will be stand up a new program to fund it through CBOs, or it will go through the governor's office and she takes oversight in making sure the dollars are spent the way they're supposed to. So we've just gotten general conversations about the dollar allocation. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of detail in writing of the dollars go to so-and-so who has oversight. That hopefully comes out in the budget report when they vote on it. But if it goes through the governor's office, you usually see that. And that's not a dig at it. It's just historically right now, you see that maybe an hour or two before the hearing. So.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, Commissioners, if it's okay, can I start down our list, and then I won't be taking too long, but I just imagine there will be questions. Okay. So the first one on our list is a priority 2, and that's House Bill 4061. This one is dealing with movement of water to illegal cannabis grows. Effectively, this one we have as a priority 2. It did pass the House 57-0, and then yesterday was in Senate rules and passed 5-0. So I expect no issues on the floor of the Senate. But this does allow the Water Resources Department to have better traction of when they've been having issues where people could go to municipalities, get water holes, and then there's no ability to track whether that's going to illegal grows or not. This bill's trying to address that. And then also establish it. So it will basically prohibit water hauling to unregistered or unlicensed cannabis grow sites. And then it also will help set up a system for tracking. So if that occurs, they're able to persecute or fine or whatever the penalty would be. So that
Persecute?
Say that again.
I said persecute. That's
sorry. Well, it does. I mean, they will have the ability. They do talk at length on the last hearing of they don't have right now that this is a Class B misdemeanor, and there is expected to be a prosecute. Sorry about that. Prosecute. They are probably trying to bring a bill back next week, next session that will increase that significantly. So.
Thank you.
No problem.
Phil, so this bill, I heard you say it deals with, basically someone like pulling up a water truck, filling it up, and then, there being record keeping and making sure that it's not going to illegal marijuana production. But this doesn't deal at all with illegal wells or someone basically diverting a stream that they have no rights to divert or things like that.
I think they originally were wanting to tackle that. That became more of a complicated issue in a short session, but that is noted in this that they are getting around not being able to get their water rights by going to municipalities and getting water hauls. And so I think they're trying to take this bite of the apple. That's going to continue as a conversation because they are talking about that. That was a huge amount of the discussion is there are still people using water rights inappropriately for these illegal rows, things like that. And so, but that's not in this bill that I see.
Yeah, and I mean, the big issue we had out by Alfalfa a few months back, I mean, that was, if I understand correctly, it was a completely illegal well. It wasn't, oh, I'm using my water rights, but for something I'm not supposed to. It was, taking water that was not theirs.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's not addressed in this bill yet that I'm aware of, but it's part of the conversation. So,
and I mean, it's extremely hard to track down if there's a little stream out in Southwest Oregon that someone is, diverting into their fields. But
right.
It just seems like that's where the meat of this problem is going to be. And I hope that they can figure out some way to tackle that.
Well, and so that I will, if you folks want, after we get out of session, that's one that's going to take significant rulemaking from the department. And it does delegate a lot of that to them. So if that's something we need to be tracking for you, let us know. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, the next bill we already covered a little bit. This is 4123, and this one had it pass out of the Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee last night, or not last night, sorry, yesterday, on its way to the full. They don't have a full schedule yet today, but there is a likelihood they will after Capital Construction meets and the subcommittees meet this morning, so that they have a full agenda. There's also conversation that Ways and Means will meet tomorrow because there will be floor sessions tomorrow as well. And so this is the bill that allocates the $1 million to Deschutes County for Representative Crops bill. And so that one is moving forward, looking good. So next bill is, and we have that obviously as a priority to support. So the next bill is 4130. This one's also a priority too. And this one, this is the wildlife crossings bill. So this one looks like it's stalled a little bit. It's still in Ways and Means. It passed out of the subcommittee in fine shape. It's asking for $7 million general fund to have additional wildlife crossings. It's just stalled in Ways and Means. It can be scheduled at any moment, but we're just not hearing any movement on it right now. And that could be because it's just not one of the hot topic bills for good or bad. And they just might be putting it on the shelf until they reach that pot of bills. And so I know there's a lot of, as Ryan noted earlier, the big fiscal ones that are still being negotiated are in everyone's mind right now. And so this might just pop up on a large agenda here in a couple days, but didn't have any big issues in committee, passed the subcommittee, just sitting in full Ways and Means waiting to be scheduled if it gets scheduled. So. Okay. Senate Bill 1533. This is, sorry, did I over talk somebody?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. 1533, this is a priority one for us in a support because this is the technical fix rule 88 ADU bill. This looks like it's moving forward. It has already passed the Senate 25-0. There were people that were just excused or absent, but everybody was a yes on the bill. It went to its work session on the 21st. It passed out of that and it got its second reading on the floor of this week. And so that should be, it's on the third reading calendar. It's just a matter of when they get to it because they're reading the all the bills in full. And so that is on its way for a third reading on the floor, and that will be the last chamber needed there. So. Okay. Senate, the next bill is 4063, and we have this as a priority to oppose. This bill, just looking at my notes on this one, I might have had that on my computer. 4063. All right, so this one is sitting in Ways and Means as well. It has not made it to any of the two floors, but it is in the same position as our wildlife crossings bill. I shouldn't say our wildlife crossings bill, a bill that we were tracking. It was voted out of this committee on the 17th and 18th. It's now the 25th. And it's just sitting in Ways and Means. And so part of that is probably a little bit because I do know that there was a fiscal on this bill. They were also doing additional conversations on what studies might cost if it could get amended to become more of just a study bill. But during the discussions, DCBS estimated those studies alone would be between $300,000 and $600,000 to do. And so you might see this bill tabled and turned into a budget note. It might continue forward. But I guess if our, I don't know if our department has any more update hearing from different associations than we are on that, but it's just not moving, which is kind of rare right now to be sitting for that long.
Yeah, thanks, Phil.
I
I'm
can
not
comment
sure.
on that.
Oh, yeah,
The
go ahead.
AOC thinks it's not going to move. But also the latest amendments. So as the bill sits, I forget which dash they were, but it's probably not an opposition for us anymore. They've taken out the things that we had issues with. So it's mostly a study bill. And then with some amendments that would allow folks to submit for building permits prior to platting of lots, which is fine with us. So not opposed right now as it sits.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Peter, I don't know if you have any comments either on that. It sounded like there were a lot of negotiations happening behind the scenes that were addressing a lot of the issues. And just as Chris had mentioned, that may move it from a 2 opposed to a 2 neutral. I think it's still important for us to track at a high priority. But Peter, I don't know if you have any perspectives on that too.
I don't. I had heard anecdotally that that it was not referred to additional study, but sounds like Chris knows more than I do. But no, I don't have anything else to offer.
Thank you, Peter.
All right. Well, so the next bill on the list is 1518. This one, we talked about knowing that it was going to get an amendment. They gotten stuff and turned it into a task force. I believe on our last call, Ryan was helping on the amendment a bit and trying to get 2 spots reserved for local governments. That was achieved. And then we were able to get one that represents urban and one must represent rural regions. So if the county does have a desire to fit or try to get on that chair, those will be appointed. I can get you who's appointing those. I believe it is the Speaker and the Senate House, or Speaker and the House Speaker and the Senate President. Sorry, it's just been a long night and a long morning looking at agendas. I apologize. This one is going to basically have a task force that focuses on resiliency and efficiency of buildings. It's going to be a 27-member task force. Is going to have 23 of those being non-legislators and an aim to represent geographic diversity of the state. And so again, if the county would be interested, I would suggest that we draft a letter and get that to both the Speaker and the Senate President as soon as possible, and then probably agency as well, to make sure that they're aware of the county's desire to sit on that. If not a big deal, but it will. We just want to make sure you're aware that did get amended. It is going to become a task force. And that passed out of Ways and Means yesterday, and we'll be starting to go to the floors for a vote in that form. And that's another one that we had as a priority to oppose, but I don't know if that was opposed in the original. Now that it's a task force, that might be different. So.
Peter, did you have anything to comment on this one?
I do not.
Okay. Nick, was there anything you were aware of? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, next bill we have as a priority to support is House Bill 4004. And this is the one that directs OHA to implement a grant program and contract with staff to provide residential treatment facilities, care in residential treatment facilities to address the behavioral health workforce. This one is they did appropriate $132.3 million of general fund. And then this is a one-time grants. And so that, I believe, is another one that had conversation about are we starting up grant programs that we're going to be trying to track down general fund in the future to continue funding, but that is one-time grant general funds that are going to be appropriated to this. And they are going to be distributed to increase practitioner wages, offer retention bonuses, and or recruit new behavioral health staff. I know at the beginning of the session, we talked about if this was going to be able to help providers bring in workforce and then maintain them. And I think this is maybe addressing just the recruitment and trying to get capacity in. Hopefully there's enough services and enough effectively, one of the conversations are we bringing in a bunch of people to get hired based off of bonuses, and are the providers going to be able to maintain them, which I don't think from the conversations there's such a demand that might not be an issue, but I don't know that as well as maybe our health professionals on the call. But that did move out of Ways and Means yesterday as well. Yeah, the funding was amended into the bill. So I'll just pause there if our departments or if Whitney or the departments or Nick had any comments that I missed on that.
No, thanks, Phil. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's correct. It's one-time only funding, and it will be issued as grants similar to the ones that went out earlier this year that we were able to apply to be reimbursed for a bonus program that we developed. So we'll need to be prepared with a policy package that we'll work with HR on for how to make use of those dollars, because they are one time. So strategically, we need to think about things like stay agreements, recruitment bonuses that involve stay agreements, and then perhaps investing in funds to set aside for educational reimbursements, stipends, and other kinds of incentives that help us maintain the workforce over time, because this isn't a wage increase. This is literally mostly going to function as a one-time way to help address staffing issues. So we're going to have to be really thoughtful about how we deploy, and we have to apply. Yay. But we can do that. We're used to that. It's
Yes,
still good
Janice.
news.
Janice, you do such a good job at applying. And yes, definitely the stay agreement, I think, is really important. Yes. Don't just come and get your money and then walk out the door. Couple months.
And Nick, Whitney, commissioners, or Janice, if you'd like, I have more details on some of the things that were put in the budget report, or I can send over the budget report. It does give the timeline, like the funds must be distributed out by May 31st of this year, things like that, if that's helpful. Some of it talks about 4,000 per person in this grant. So if that's helpful, I'm happy to get that to you.
Very helpful. The sooner we know, the better. Thanks, Phil.
Perfect. I will email that right after this call. All right. Next one is 1545. And this one I talked a little bit about earlier. This is the governor's workforce development investment package. This is going to be a $200 million investment. And this one is that did not get any pushback on policy, but got pushback on dollar figures during Ways and Means, but it still passed yesterday. We'll be proceeding to the floors. And then I have out here, and I don't know if you just want me to read through there's 10 main investment areas. If you'd like me to just read off the amounts that are and the programs that those are going to, but other than that, there's going to be a lot of program stand-ups in this bill. A lot of it's going to HEC as well. And I should note for our folks in higher education, if you're visiting with them, it was noted that there's going to be a lot of following of HEC, that they are actually using these dollars towards apprenticeship, things like that. There was a robust conversation saying just a few years back, the conversation was don't invest in that, get everybody into college. Now it's college isn't the route, invest everything into apprenticeship. So that was a discussion, and the part of that discussion was that HEC has not had a history of actually doing the apprenticeship as well as the trades and the private sector. And so there's going to be a lot of reporting back to the legislature that the dollars are spent in a prudent way. But again, some of these are one-time grant programs, so standing up apprenticeship programs that then have to go find ongoing funding. So $35 million will go to the Prosper 10,000 program, and that's going to be administered by local workforce development boards. $2.1 million is going to go to DHS to incorporate and to incorporate the Prosper 10,000 program into state SNAP employment and training programs. So it's going to just roll into that. 14.9 million general fund will expand the post-secondary career pathway programs. That was kind of the conversation around apprenticeships at community colleges currently. Right now they're funded also from the private sector, and there was a lot of discussion of making sure that this isn't just a money grab for staffing at community colleges, but it actually gets out to training people. Same thing with the next one. That's $20 million to expand registered apprenticeship programs. That's usually done through community colleges currently. HEC's trying to expand that a little bit into, like, I know Eastern Oregon University is looking at trying to do a program. But I don't know the status of that. I just know that's been a request a couple sessions now. So yeah, 14.9 million in post-secondary career paths, 20 million to apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship. 10.5 million is going to go to expanding youth workforce and engagement incentives. Those have to be stood up. There are some that were discussed about investing in that are currently in place. So that might turn into grants. It might also turn into just funding new programs. 10 million in general fund to expand capacity to prior learning credit. They didn't talk about that, and I have not dug in enough to know what that is yet. So I'll have these broken down and in better description once I get through the whole budget report on it. 95 million and it's a mixture of funds, general and other, to establish new workforce readiness grant programs. 1 million to establish a new industry consortium program. 10 million for new navigation programs, and that will be ARPA dollars, those 10 million, and that is trying to create these centers that bring in all of the resources of standing people back up on their feet and during their hard times, things like that. And then finally, the 1.5 million general fund to ensure assessment, accountability, and continuous improvement. And that is where I think you heard some of the conversation in committee say, well, what does that mean? Is that just staff, growing HEC's staff? And it was put as legislative intent is to have that staff then track all of these dollars. So there wasn't a lot of detail in there yet. I'm hoping that pops out in the budget report. I have that in front of me, but they passed it late last night and have not been able to read through it all yet. But I will get answers to that if folks want that. And that will be moving to both House and Senate floor immediately because it went through the Joint Ways and Means and passed last night.
So can we have two decisions, kind of local level decisions in front of us related to apprenticeships, and I'm trying to figure out how those issues intersect with this piece of legislation or not.
Okay.
In particular, I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to think about whether there's synergistic effects or whether there's redundancy. And the two things that we're looking at are, number one, we got a request from the Central Oregon Builders Association to provide some American Rescue Plan funds, I believe, to essentially provide stipends for apprentices. So I guess one question would be, in all of that big bundle of pieces that you just described, are there stipends for people who are doing apprenticeships? The second piece that we're looking at is, or we're exploring, is a community benefits bidding protocol for our county, which would, it would put a handful of requirements on contractors who want to bid on large county capital projects, including a requirement that they you participate in an apprenticeship program, so that the contractors are offering apprenticeship opportunities. And so, both of those things I'm trying to figure out whether there's complementarity and synergy or whether there's redundancy with this piece of legislation, which it sounds like has pretty good traction.
Yes. I don't know how to answer that right now, but I can definitely read through it and get you the information on it so that you guys can look at it and determine that. It definitely gives a little bit of detail here. And I will send you this budget report, page 8, 9, and 11. It seems like is the apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship section. So, and then I'll go through the HEC section as well, since that was noted there, highlight anything there. So the other thing just to be aware of there is I do think that there's going to be probably apprenticeship dollars coming out in another bill. There was talk about a special purpose appropriation for apprenticeships and developing in rural areas. So I will go track where that is. I'm assuming if it was a special purpose appropriation, or sometimes called a SPA, that usually is going to pop up in the budget reconciliation bill, which has not been released in any way yet. And so I will keep an eye for that as well, because they really didn't detail what those dollars were for. They just said for apprenticeship development in rural areas. So I will look for that as well.
Thank you.
So Phil, you had said that there was actually a pushback on the dollars. Is the dollar still sitting at the 200 million?
Yes, that was what they noted at the end there. And yeah, the pushback was just we're leaving with one of the lowest ending fund balances that they have. Conversation was yes, but they're moving a lot into the emergency fund, and the reserves are in a healthy position. So it was just a conversation of, do we go that low knowing we're spending $2 billion in new resources just in a 1-month session? So, and again, I think part of it is a lot of these are one-time programs. Times are great now, but pendulum always swings. So. Okay.
Yes.
So, and those are fair. That's fair. I think we've all seen Oregon when the state does really well in its resources, they do really well, but we're also one of the first to get hit when recessions happen as well. So. All right. The next bill is 1555. This one is I think we talked a little bit. This is just it's a bill that already passed in the last session to fund providers to come and do home visiting for new services for newborns. That popped up this session because the fiscal has been shored up a little bit better than it was in the last session. They're going to need more money for it. And so they do plan, they will be funding it. It did get past the Senate floor, I believe, but there were 4 nays on that, and then several absences. So it passed 19-4. Again, all of those nays were in conversation of they still don't know what the true fiscal of this bill is going to be in the end. And they don't feel like we should continue funding it until there's an actual answer from the agencies on how much this is going to cost, because it's all coming from general fund at this point. So.
And Phil, do we understand how this program would be deployed? I mean, is this likely funding that is coming to our public health department to provide these services, or is this, would these funds be going into other nurses, through other channels to provide this service?
I know it established the Oregon Family Connections Program, the bill last session, and I keep saying last session, is actually 2019 session, and I apologize about being wrong on that. In 2019, it established the Oregon Family Connections Program to provide these services. I don't know if that means they can contract out that to the public health. That might be one for our locals to know. I have no problem also asking that question, but it is overseen and administered at the high level by OHA. So.
Tom, do you have any insights on that?
My understanding was that there would be some funds for our newborn home visiting program. And beyond that, I'm not really sure the details of who else could benefit from the funding, but I believe we will see some impacts from it.
And I would say that it does say this bill has at the very end, it does say it will direct OHA and DCBS to adopt the rules related to coverage and payment methodologies for newborn home visits provided by this Oregon Family Connections Program. And so maybe in that rulemaking, if we say that, this program has evaluated a county public health program and it meets all the criteria, then yes, you can maybe relay the funds. So if that's one that we would like to track rulemaking on, that might be good. All right.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, and then the last one is just the last one we have on the list today is 4063. This was one, Chris, I might turn to you on. Don't know if I have the best update on this one yet. I do know we had it as an opposed. This was a section I believe we talked about related to roads a little bit, but I'm going to fall short on updating on this one. I know it had its work session still sitting in Ways and Means. I just don't know. I haven't been able to track down if that's moving or not.
Yeah, so we had already talked about this. This is listed twice on our thing here, so.
Oh, did it go again? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Where did I miss that then? Huh. Oh.
And as Chris said, it's AOC thinks it's not going to move.
Oh, that's the study bill. Sorry.
Yeah, study bill.
Sorry. One of those mornings. Sorry.
So number soup.
No, that's good. So has anything else, Bill, passed that's going to the governor for signature that you wanted to let us know about? It's not on our sheet.
Not, I haven't gone back through over what's passed the last 2-3 days to be able to answer that best, Commissioner. I'm happy to do that though. I know they'll be publishing that report this morning and I can just do one big overview again. So.
Can you send that out to us then?
Yep, absolutely. When
Okay.
the floors, there'll be 2 separate ones. They're just called the floor reports, and it'll just say, it just notifies each chamber which one's passed and what's moving on. So I will get that. So,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. All right,
So,
so my action items, I just wanted to make sure I'm gonna, on the one program for behavioral health, I'm gonna email that budget report over to you folks that has details on the grants for Janice. And then I will also get you commissioners the breakdown budget report for the apprenticeship. I'll just send you the full budget report for the governor's workforce development. So,
the one with the 200 million.
correct.
Yes, that would be good to see. Oh, do you know what happened with the school bill? I think wasn't it like $100 million school bill? And I was just wondering, has that gone through?
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw a press release from Senator Courtney yesterday on that. I have not gone through. It did seem like it was going to move forward, but I've not seen the 150 million for summer learning package. That's one of them, and then I believe that is going to be in a larger package for. Oh no, yeah, it will all include that. So it will be. It's going to include a couple things. And so it is moving forward. It just hasn't passed everything yet. So effectively, if it helps visualize, you're going to have $100 million rural infrastructure bill, $400 million housing bill. This one's $150 million education package, for lack of better terms. And the education package will have 3 specific investments. K-12 enrichment grants for the funding of enrichment activities, academic learning, and mental health support for kids. The second part would be high school academic grants to support summer programs that help high school kids stay on track for graduation. And then the third part will be community activity grants. So for helping community partners provide new and existing summer programs such as camps, park programs, and tutoring. So when they publish the package or budget report on that too, we should then know deadlines. I imagine they'll say dollars have to be out at the door at certain times again, especially if it's a summer program. And so that will all be detailed in. These are just press releases we're getting from providing leadership right now. And then a little bit of what they call them ponies, which is the preliminary reports that they LFO puts together, but it doesn't have the fine details of who gets the funds. So, but I'll mark that down as one to track and get to you as well. So.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions this morning? Any hands up? Yes, Commissioner Chang? Did you have-
Yeah, Phil, do you have any like after action type insights for us on Senator Knope's forest thinning bill? I heard about it very late, and there's a lot of complexity that I was when I saw the bill I was concerned hadn't been dealt with. So I mean, I have my thoughts on maybe why that bill wasn't set up for success, but I'd actually like to hear, hear some insights on, how the deliberations on that went and,
Yeah.
kind of what ultimately kept it from moving forward.
Not a problem. I think I have no problem tracking that down, Commissioner, and then trying to bring something back to you. My understanding is it was one of those things where a part of it was a little bit of an, I think part of it was a certain number of counties were mentioned, and all counties have issues that they need to take care of. And so I think there's going to be part of the interim conversation is how do you balance spreading dollars so thin that it really doesn't do anything, and where are the real targeted investments needed. And so I know the senator was really trying to take care of Deschutes County in his district on that, but I think it got some opposition from some of the other timber areas that have said, well, why just these 5 counties or so? So I do know that there's going to be interim conversations on it.
It was added to be 25 counties. Bill, it was amended, and 25 counties were going to get 2 million each.
But I think that was part of after everyone just already agreed that this would go to an interim conversation. And so because I don't know if the 2 million gets everybody where they need to be. That is what I'm hearing is 2 million in some counties really doesn't get you far. And some it does really well. I think part of one of the conversations was like, if you take a Wheeler County, for example, can you remove juniper, which is a huge water user in areas where they need water. And so there was just enough questions asked that I think they said, okay, let's just work this in the interim. So, but I can track down if that's going to means a work group, if that's just Senator Knoop bringing a group together, or if we're going to be doing that through AOC. I have no problem asking the questions and finding current status.
Yeah, besides kind of just the postmortem on that, it would be really helpful to understand whether the senator is interested in pursuing this idea again, and if so, I would definitely like to help or be of any assistance I can with formulating something that's a little bit more. It deals with some of the complexities a little bit better, and maybe could get more traction statewide.
Okay.
So what the process is essentially to engage in refinement of that legislative concept if the senator is going to pursue it again.
Perfect. Well, I don't ever think it's harmful to help being part of a solution. And so, yeah.
Great. Do we see anything else? So, Phil, I believe we are, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I saw that the House Bill 4052, that's the Racism is a Public Health Crisis Bill, that it passed unanimously out of a joint committee on Ways and Means earlier this week, and then it has a third reading today at the House desk. I want to ask Phil, where would it go from there after the third reading at the House?
Yeah, since it passed out of Ways and Means, it doesn't have to go to a policy committee on the Senate side. If I'm saying that correctly, yes. Since it's a House bill, it goes straight to the House floor and then it'll go straight to the Senate. You'll get a second reading there and then straight to a third reading. And so, and then off to the governor. So, yep, no policy committees if it came out of full Ways and Means.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Lee, is that your hand up?
I just want to raise the issue of House Bill 4019 related to qualified nonprofit agencies. The Facilities Department does contract with a qualified nonprofit agency for custodial contracting, and it appears this bill would add some additional requirements. And so I'm just interested in following the bill.
And I see that one did get sent. It was to Business and Labor and then instead got referred to Rules. I'm not sure that that's a good sign for it. If they added a step in the middle, but I think they probably sent it to Rules to keep it alive in case a negotiation occurred, because Rules isn't subject to the deadlines. So yes, no, it is sitting in Rules, has been since the 16th and has gotten no movement as of right now.
If the board is comfortable This is currently sitting at a 4, so it's not going to reflect on any of our reporting, but maybe we could elevate it to a 2, just so we're kind of able to keep a little bit closer track of it as we head into next week.
Great. Whitney, what bill number was that?
4019.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you could move it up, I think that would be good, especially if Lee is concerned.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see, do I see any of their hands up? I believe we have you on the agenda for next Wednesday morning, Phil,
Yes.
at a pretty closely, hopefully specific time. I don't know. Let's see. I think, go ahead to that agenda.
Okay. And real quick, while we're looking up the agenda, Commissioner,
11:10,
11:10, perfect.
if we're good.
That works on our end. So,
Okay.
and I guess I just have one more question. I know earlier we talked about the mattress program bill. That one I don't have up as a 2, and I don't mean to step on anyone's toes here. Is that okay if I just elevate that just so that I make sure I'm tracking it for everybody? It doesn't mean we have to change a position on it, but just so that I'm tracking it, because I do know it, if it goes forward, it'll be setting up a new program that I think local governments are affected by.
Great. No, I think that makes sense to do that,
Okay, thank you.
since we're trying not to fill our landfill.
Perfect. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, Chad, can you give us any sense of kind of like a volume or a tonnage like that you know that is affected by this?
It is difficult because the way the rates are at the landfill, it's just lumped in with everything else that comes in. Years ago that we did a pilot program on mattress recycling with St. Vincent de Paul, and it was a real challenge to administer. I think I made a comment at the last meeting. It seems like everyone in this town buys mattresses and replaces carpet because we see so much of it coming in. It's difficult to put a number on it to just get to your question directly. It will make a difference. They don't compress well. They take up a lot of space. I would love to see this go forward.
Good to know. Thanks.
Thank you. If there are not any more questions, then we will see you again Wednesday, but if you can send those reports to us Wednesday, hopefully at 11-ish. Looks like that's what's on our agenda.
And Commissioner Dare, I would just echo for staff that are on today's call, we'll forward the Zoom invitation for the board's meeting next Wednesday to you, so that if you want to join and participate in their legislative update within the regular business meeting, you're able to log on to Zoom and do that if you have updates that you want to monitor or provide to the board.
Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we need some more snow.